So, apart from many other factors, one of the key factors that did come out of this panel discussion was collaboration. The way that multiple sectors need to work together to bring out the best for healthcare. Now, with this, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting into our next session. And in this particular session, we want to take our fundamental discussion of collaboration or multi-sectors a step further. And this time we also want to talk about capital, and we also want to talk about the clinical credibility that also needs to add into the equation before we can finally address it. So ladies and gentlemen, this next one is called Capital, Collaboration and Clinical Credibility, the New Trade of Health Innovation. And as it was also mentioned earlier, that it is not just innovation and it cannot be only collaboration, but it has to be a mix, a judicious mix of all of this coming together. And to highlight this, innovative landscape and also talk about it, let me now start by inviting our next panelist to please join us in. I wish to start by inviting Mr. Rajeev Arora, the President and Cluster Head Critical Care, Oncology and Hematology and Emergency Medicine, BSV Mankind, to please join us on the head table. Welcome in, sir. Let's give it a welcome, sir. Mr. Gaurav Khurana, the Group CEO for Amandeep Hospitals in partnership with Ujala Cygnus, is still in the flight. He hasn't been able to make it as yet. We'll possibly have him at a later point of time joining in a further discussion. But now I'll invite Sharad Goswami, Senior Director, Global Policy and International Public Affairs for Pfizer, to kindly please join us on the head table. Mr. Neeraj, Regional Director, Maharashtra and Karnataka region at Medicover Hospitals. Welcome, sir. And this session, ladies and gentlemen, will be moderated by Dr. Debjani Saha, AGM for Premas Life Sciences. Welcome, ma'am. We'll invite you as well to please take your seat. And ladies and gentlemen, this one shall be the next layer that we wish to unfold and hand it over to Dr. Saha. The stage is yours, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, am I audible? All right. First of all, thank you, Voice of Healthcare, for giving me this opportunity. And of course, I'm in the presence of some eminent and august people associated with mainstream clinical care in India. So we've titled today's discussion as Capital, Collaboration and Clinical Credibility, because obviously increasingly these are the three pillars which are actually indispensable in dissemination of clinical care, not just in India, but everywhere else globally. So over the last decade, we've seen an enormous amount of pumping of money or investments in healthcare, whether it's hospitals, whether it's digital healthcare, pathology, diagnostics, or even life sciences, right? And new hospitals have been created, advanced technologies have been adopted, and clinical capabilities have been expanded. However, there are also increasing pressure on margins, and as a result, affordability goes for a toss. And of course, sometimes clinical outcomes and trust are also diluted, right? Which raises an important question: is capital today acting as an enabler of advancement of innovation, or somewhere unintentionally it's shaping priorities in a way that don't always translate into better outcomes, right? And innovation in healthcare especially, it's very different from innovation anywhere else, because basically when you actually talk about innovation, sometimes just for safety standards, you need the pace of innovation to be slow. At times when unmet needs need to be met urgently, then the pace of innovation has to be fast. And of course, they need to always align with standardized protocols. Like no single stakeholder can actually move the needle in a way which ensures better outcomes, right? So as we know, collaboration is absolutely indispensable in this segment. And how do we ensure that this collaboration moves from basically a transactional relationship to a setting where you're actually generating real-world outcomes, you're aligning them with standardized protocols, and you're not assuming trust from, let's say, clinicians, peers, patients, and policymakers. You're actually working very tirelessly towards that, right? So we have amongst us a bunch of absolutely eminent people who are at very critical interfaces of the healthcare delivery systems. And it's going to be my pleasure to actually discuss on credibility, clinical credibility and collaborations and capital investment. And the idea is not to basically come out with a silver bullet, because there cannot be absolutely perfect answers, but it's, the session is basically focused on creating deliberations on maybe what's working, what's not working, what needs to be changed, so on and so forth, right? So with that little introduction, let me first introduce my panel. Just 1 second, it's all right. So I think, I believe the panels have been introduced. So let me just not probably do that. I think my first question is to Mr. Rajeev Arora. So in high equity areas like, let's say, oncology and critical care, how has capital investment shaped innovation? I mean, are we seeing better outcomes, or mainly, is it just complicating the treatment pathways? Like, we would just like to know your thoughts on really whether capital investment is translating on ground to better outcomes.
Okay, thanks Debjani and the viewers team. Very happy to be a part of this panel, and with my esteemed co-panelists, missing Dr. Gaurav, I think, as I heard he's traveling. But let me start something from a very recent visit to his hospital, Amandeep Hospital in Amritsar. And before entering, my colleague tells me, sir, this is a part of now Cygnus, corporate chain of hospitals. And you see how it changes the complete mindset of the kind of capital or consolidation that today is happening in current healthcare industry. We have been speaking about money pals, we have been speaking about Fortes or Max, but when you hear some new startups, we heard about Yatharth just some time back. And it's all about getting more accountability, credibility, better infrastructure, better patient outcomes. But I think if there's something needs to be done better, my view is on one side, a strong consolidation happening at the this corporate chain or private hospitals. But I think capital investment is not just about creating assets or consolidation once the patient is in the hospital or once the patient arrives in the hospital. I mean, to me, it's all about better patient outcomes, safety, better access. And look at our journey, what traverses from, I was very happy to hear Aryaman's, look at the slide he presented. There's a huge difference or a diversity which exists in the country for, tier 2 or tier 3, forget the rural one, versus tier 1. And when I say tier 1, marginally tier 2 has started getting into such healthcare accesses, but tier 2, tier 3, and the rural, there's a huge gap. If capital has to be further, have some kind of a better accessibility to the patients, we are talking of acuity here, right? Which means a very emergency, situation or a very severe situation like cancer care, somebody in a severe pain or cardiac arrest. I'll give you one example from my own disease area currently, which is snake bite envenoming. I think we don't talk much, but we as an organization has taken as a mission to see that how much awareness and how much we change the outcomes of it. And this is what we call a golden hour. We have about 1 hour to 3 hours to address those acuity situations. Do we have enough ambulances? Do we have enough connectivities? Do we have enough, I would say, expert care to talk to the patient who is just, having a chest pain or a pain because of some, advanced cancer? I think we need to do furthermore to address this, and that's where I would request or I would suggest the capital to infuse in that direction as well, not just about, in tier 1 consolidation or creating kind of an assets. Fundamentally, if you look at it, it's a 3C we are talking, right? Capital, collaboration, and credibility. And if you look at the fundamentals of healthcare, I think it starts from contact, comprehensive, better coordinated, and the continuity of treatment. I mean, I'll park the affordability little later, which is certainly very relevant to the Indian context, but I would want the capital infusion to play a finer role to, have an access to mobilize those patients in need of those places towards, the ambulance to be better, equipped with the equipments, better trained staff, right? Better drug availability, and who have a constant telemonitoring services being, from a, say, center of excellence being, directly being telecasted once they are enabling the patient to be arriving at a tertiary care center. So these are my couple of thoughts, Debjani.
And how do you think we can actually make it more systemic than maybe to make it, let's say, procedure-centric? Because sometimes when you actually talk about critical care, we become very regimental about maybe improving the procedure rather than caring about maybe a broad systemic kind of an improvement. Do you think there's some kind of a guidance or an overview?
I think certainly I would request, think of a situation, I think, what are the number of road accidents today we have? Almost 180,000 to 200,000. And we are all mired into the, the so-called hassles of what should be done at this spot. We as a common man would be prohibitive or would not take that risk to come forward and, take those steps. I think that needs to be simplified. That needs to be more encouraged rather than getting into the procedural environment. And probably, I think the corporate hospitals can have a better liaison with some kind of government initiatives to ensure that moment when somebody is lying on a roadside in a traumatic condition, we look at the patient safety first or patient care first rather than getting into those, squeezing ourselves not to get started there.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for that perspective. Mr. Lal, from an operational standpoint, let's say, where do you see capital investment truly improving, let's say, care delivery, and where do they struggle really to bring the entire thing together? Like, do you think, along with the clinical and workflow improvements, do you think there are things that they can improve on which can actually ensure a better delivery of these healthcare systems, purely from an operational standpoint?
Right. We run a chain of hospital, which is a European-based Medicover hospitals. So they're in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, and Maharashtra. So I think first thing first, if private equity is not there, right? So capital infusion is not there, we will not be growing, right? From one hospital to 25 hospital now. And like in our country, I think because of private equity, Dr. Pratap Singh Reddy, 1980s, he came down from US and established first corporate hospital in India with the private equity of few doctors, right? So I think capital infusion is very, very important. But from specifically operation point of view, I'll quote some examples, I think, which will, that is for sure, if good capital infusion is there, operational efficiency of the hospital become very well. I'll give you example, like these are the days of robotic surgery, bivalent cath labs, all those things are very, very important. Try to understand when we are doing open surgery versus laparoscopic surgery and now our robotic surgery. Dramatic changes happen in average length of stay. Earlier, the CABG, you have to cut the breastbone, do the surgery, sometime on pump, sometime off pump, and the patient has to wait 7 plus 3 days. I know we used to make packages 7 plus 3 days. You have to spend some time in the ICU, some time in the ward, and then also it looked very, very bad. And now we have shifted to a robotic cardiac surgery. Firstly, we shifted to minimum invasive cardiac surgery, which has reduced the time for 5 hours of surgery to 2 hours. And now with robotic cardiac surgery, it is just 20 to 30 minutes. So I think that kind of investment, if comes into the healthcare, and it is benefiting patient at large. So average length of stay is going on. The cost of the treatment is also going on. The robotic surgery, I'm surprised to say now every hospital, I get down in the morning at airport, Max is talking about 33 robots. We are talking about robots now. So now most of the surgery is shifting to a robotic surgery. Why? Here robots are not doing surgery. They facilitate doctor to do the surgery. So I have seen now some of the insurance company don't approve the robotic rates. So they do a conventional laparoscopic surgery and charge extra from the patient. So I think it is a time has come where I think we have to use the technology, and we have to, COVID is the biggest example. Our hospitals, right from the corporate hospital to last, star doctors are not coming for the virtual consultations. When they have seen the youngsters, they are using virtual platform for consultation. It is happening now. We are the first paperless hospital. I mean paperless means truly paperless hospital. I have worked in Apollos, I have worked in Rainbow. In fact, the Max and Apollos, if you see, they are using the digital only to a limited to a OPD. IPD is most of the time is this thing, but we use 100% paperless. A patient entered to a hospital, our staff nurse, we don't have a nursing station in the medical records. A nurse have a tablet or an iPad, everything is happening there. So I think the capital infusement in the operation part of healthcare has changed the way we give the delivery to the patient, and the healthcare is at home. So now healthcare is shifting from the hospital to home. So remote monitoring is happening. Like we are not managed, we have around 100 ICU beds, but we manage 5,000 critical care beds. Why? Because of technology. We have established a ICU workstation in tier 2 and tier 3 cities where you don't have critical care consultant. But our critical care consultant, with the help of this machine learning and AI, they are in touch with these doctors, and we can reduce the code blue activities so that we can give the consultation on time, and we can benefit patient. And this, from operation point of view, the quality part of healthcare, we talk about quality and accreditation. Hospital acquired infection rates have gone down. So I think if the capital infusement is there in healthcare, it will change. One more example I'll tell, the pain areas in the hospital, the people who operate the hospital, it is a patient transport management. Whatever you do, whichever hospital you go, the time consumed, patient from the ward to the OT, from the OT back to the CT scan and MRI, and this has been managed by patient care attendants. So you see, entire hospital digital, entire hospital got good technology, but this patient transport management is happening through these people. So we invested in the technology like these cabs, Meru cabs, Ola cabs and all. So there is an application which is given to 10 to 12 young peoples. They are 10th class and 12th class people. So this app has been given, and a staff nurse is empowerment. They see which is the closest transport manager who's there. And wherever these young boys and girls are there, they see there is a call from the ward number 1. They go there, take the patient on a wheelchair, shift them to the ward, shift them to the CT scan, and they don't wait there, because a call is waiting for them. So with the help of 42 ward boys or PCA, we have reduced down to only 12 people. And it is app-based delivery. So you can control the patient transport management with the help of this technology. I think if we use these kind of thing, it will change the way we give healthcare.
No, absolutely. I think, I think technology and innovation are absolutely indispensable. We can always argue about the access or, the democratization of technology. Both in diagnostics and in therapeutics or in critical care. But there is no arguing of the fact that technology is absolutely indispensable. Which brings me to Mr. Sharad. From, let's say, a global policy perspective, what capital and regulatory enablers can accelerate the introduction of advanced therapies, let's say, and evidence-backed innovation in India? Like, if you had to, offer your perspective, what are the current policy frameworks which encourage, let's say, a responsible healthcare innovation? Or are we just unintentionally creating barriers, like by arguing for a responsible innovation-backed healthcare delivery? You can take mine.
So one thing that I think everybody will notice is that all three of us have papers in front of us, which means that we take this panel discussion very seriously, and we've come in very prepared with our points of view. Thank you, Voice of Healthcare, for this excellent session. So given that I represent a global biopharma company, I think the fundamental question is, does capital have a role to play in bringing about innovation and R&D? And representing the private sector, I would say fundamentally it does. There's a very, very fundamental role of capital in incentivizing, supporting, creating innovation, new drugs, new therapeutics. To the question on what role would financing and regulatory kind of um, policies would have. Let me take a step back and maybe it's a general quiz to all of you. Many of you are physicians also in this room. Do you have any sense of how many molecules does a biopharma innovator start with at stage 0 of a clinical trial to arrive at one approved drug at the end of phase 3? Any guesses? You can just speak it out loud. Yeah? 10,000. You start with 10,000 candidates to arrive at one approved drug. And the average investment it takes to bring one drug to market is about $2.5 billion US dollars. Now, since many of us are challenged to wrap our heads around billions and dollars, I did the calculation. That's about 20,000 crore rupees for one innovative drug to come to market from the time that it was conceived. So capital has a role. Now, what can we do to support this capital requirement for innovation? I think that is fundamentally those financial models. We have made a start. The Department of Pharmaceuticals now has this PRIP program, which is aiming to financially support research and development in India. It's a great step forward.
5,000 crores, I believe.
5,000 crores, but a lot more needs to be done. Otherwise, how does the private sector take these steps forward in a very high risk and a very high capital intensive field? So that is one part of the financial answer. I have a lot more to say on the regulatory front. Risk proportionate science-based approval pathways. That's a big incentive on the regulatory front that can be provided. Most advanced countries have them. The EU has a prime pathway. The US FDA has a breakthrough pathway. We don't yet have it. You know, how do you accelerate regulatory approvals for truly innovative drugs? That is something that we need to do a lot more at. Again, a lot of great work is already happening, but great can become even greater.
When you say we, you mean India?
India, absolutely.
But India, we're barely having
So-
any innovative.
Great point.
Yeah.
And that is changing. And that is changing rapidly. There are about 11,000 biotech startups in India today. Okay? This is official data. Not all of them are drug discovery, but some of them are drug discovery. In fact, there is a great anti-infective molecule coming out of a local Indian company very, very soon. Right? Who could have imagined an innovative anti-infective originating out of India, out of Indian R&D and coming to the market? So things are changing. And therefore, we need to keep pace with what is changing. But very quickly, regulatory harmonization. It's about time that India joins what is called the International Council for Harmonization. This world is all about interoperability. Our standards have to be interoperable with the best in the world and vice versa. It's about time that we as a country join the ICH, which means our regulatory processes, standards are interoperable with the US, with EU, with Japan, with Canada, with Australia, so that our innovations travel faster to the world, global innovations travel faster to India. That's the second. The third one, you will always imagine that representing a innovative global company, I will always say, and that is intellectual property. I don't think we are doing ourselves as a country any favor by saying we are meeting the minimum required standards. You know, yes, we are meeting TRIPS, but TRIPS is the bare minimum. We are not a bare minimum country. We are a country that is establishing itself increasingly at the forefront of the pharmaceutical supply chain. Our standards have to be now looking at what does it take to be one of the top 5 innovative hubs in the world. And that is not the bare minimum standards. So we need to have regulatory data protection. so that any innovator who is doing clinical trials in India, their data is protected for a period of time. Every innovative country has it, and there is now conversation that's starting that India should have it as well. There is an estimate that in 2024, there were 733 clinical trials in India. If we had RDP, you would add another 500 clinical trials in just 1 year, and you would add an additional $3.5 billion of investments into the country through clinical trials. So we need to bring RDP, we need to bring patent linkage. We have a strange system where any company can go to any state drug regulator and get an approval for any drug, and the regulator is not required to check whether this drug is patent protected or not. So you have infringements happening all the time. The federal government grants a patent. This loophole allows the patent to be infringed. And I think we have to plug that gap. So broadly, financing, a lot more needs to be done. We have taken some steps in the right direction. But regulatory, a lot can be done. We have to believe that in the next decade, we will be one of the best innovative hubs in biopharmaceuticals. And if that has to happen 10 years from now, the policy ecosystem needs to start changing today.
I certainly hope, like you really seem to be optimistic on the innovative, drug production part. I have my doubts, but I really hope that programs like PRIP and all really push, let's say, a better and healthy collaboration between the academia and the industry for them to at least enable innovative drug molecule. And since you have the mic, let me ask the next question, which is, basically in the collaborative zone. Let's say because you're a representative of the pharma, from a pharma perspective, what kind of a support do you need from the hospital ecosystem or from the clinician ecosystem to ensure that you have real-world data on, let's say, real-world evidence, basically? And how do you facilitate it?
That's such a great question. And I was listening to the previous panel, and the one word that everyone kept saying was interoperability, standardization. Within one hospital, systems don't talk to each other. Forget about one city and forget about one country. So I would really hope that we can build towards that kind of a system. I'll give you one example. That's again an area that we are very deeply interested in, which is antimicrobial resistance. It is really unfortunate that we don't have standard surveillance protocols. Whether at a government level or in the private sector level, just standard surveillance protocols so we know what is the antibiogram, where is the resistance patterns, how are they changing from one state or one city to the other, how are they changing from one hospital to another. I feel a lot of this kind of work where hospitals can invest in more data standardization and making data more and more available so that public policy can benefit out of this data availability. I think this is what we...
But again, I would like to argue that at times hospitals do not want that data to go out, especially for HAIs, AMRs, etc., because that's going to be basically a blot on the credibility of the hospital. So how do you ensure...
I would love to see a day where, in addition to the certifications that hospitals talk about, talk about outcomes, talk about HAI, talk about,
I'll add up.
And a lot of good hospitals are doing it. It's starting to happen.
No, you are very right. See, because now there is no common portal. So now, like Quality Council of India, most of the accreditation body, they are creating a common portal, state-wise, city-wise and all, where you're supposed to upload this data. And they generate these kind of data. Like, as of now, hospital-only project. First hospital in the country, second hospital in the country, all those things. These are good.
What is the barometer?
What is the barometer? I think that is very, very important. I think platform like WHO also can make a difference. See, now every other day you pick up the paper and say, you are the best hospital in the country. You are the first. So these kind of thing is good. But what I feel, there should be a parameter. We are dependent upon Western world. Those people come and say, Ahmedabad is one of the best city in the country to live in. Bangalore is the worst city to live in. I think we should have our own barometers, and which they are doing. I think we do GST have taken 10 years to come in India. right? So I think we are doing it because we are a democratic setup and there is this thing. But I'm sure these kind of activities, specifically about data, which we are talking about, HAIs and all, every NABH or any accreditation body, they are managing around 70 to 80 managerial and clinical indicators. And there is a forum. Every month they talk about those indicators. But there is a platform, there is a portal where you upload all those things and you can see through this thing how this HAI is going up and down and all those things.
Just
So, Mr. Rajeev, sorry, you
Just
had a
something
point?
to it. I think, as I said, that with the capital infusion, consolidation, India has truly become a medical, hub for a medical tourism. And I think sometimes at some corporate hospitals, even 50 to 60% of patients coming in from the, overseas. And with this changing environment, I'm sure what Mr. Neeraj just said, this is bound to happen. And the sooner it takes place, it shapes up, the better it's for the country like India now.
Okay. Since, again, you have the mic and purely because of the logistics, my next question would be to you, and that would be, what would make hospitals more willing to participate in, let's say, structured real-world evidence generation? Financial incentives, data support, shared ownership of outcomes. Like, how would you incentivize hospitals to maybe participate in a structured real-world kind of a evidence generation? Is there an incentive which you think would work better than the others?
Ideally, the question is more from a medical and regulatory viewpoint, but to the best of my, experience and knowledge, I would. So I think as late or as early as Feb 25, there's a publication on the importance of real-world evidence, how it can be simplified for clinicians in Journal of Association of Physicians of India, JAPI. And that completely narrates that, whereas RCTs remain a gold standard, but there's a need or there's an importance or rapidly growing requirement to have, real-world evidences or real-world data collated from, especially countries like India. And I think in terms of requirements, in terms of what are we looking at, I think it's more, that should be more reliable, that should be more, I would say, responsive and relevant. And I think a couple of things that we can look at it, very, very basic, and I'm sure most of the hospitals do have following and maybe equipping further, because this is something we can't escape longer. Unfortunately, due to resource crunch, people crunch, logistics, statistics crunch, we are unable to deliver to the world what the wealth of information lies with us. And we tend to follow the, guidelines which is published in either in US or Europe, and we forget that what kind. So I think the standardized formats, the protocols with the clear objectives, the good part is, unless the environment which is followed for a very controlled trial, which is time bound, we have a, the database or a flexibility to have a stronger follow-ups, which could be, beyond a defined time period. And data monitoring, the good statistical support to enable that to go to a publication phase. And finally, but not, to have it a very candid, transparent ecosystem of listing and, getting into the regulatory and IRB website. This is what is happening and this is why. The merits are known to everybody. I think we are missing out a lot of timelines. And as an organization, I'm sure we as a company stand committed to it. And there are a couple of projects that we tend to do. And I think industry is willing to generate that data. Answering your question.
Cannot stress on the gold mine of data that I think most of the clinical care settings are sitting on, because we have the diversity of, our ethnicity is so rich. From Kashmir to Kanyakumari, I think the ethnic diversity is just so huge. We have such diverse gene pools. We have such diverse diets. We live in such diverse geographies. So I think we're sitting on data gold mine, and I think we really need to utilize that. Through better collaboration between clinical settings and academia, because you really need to mine that data to be able to ensure that we set standards for the Indian population. Even the basic biochemistry tests that we have, the bioreferrals that we keep seeing, they're not for our population. We are actually emulating what has been standardized for the Western populations. Forget about genomics. Genomics is a completely different ball game altogether. Because even though we comprise of, I think, 16 to 17% of the world population, we are only contributing about 0.2% of the genomic data in the entire world. All the databases do not have, so to say, brown gene pool. It's all white.
Yeah, and you know what, Debjani, just to add to this,
Sure.
the heavy patient load, the footfall in government, of course, even in the private sector, sometimes as simple as the need for a right data coordinators for a specified time is something, people look at it. And I'm sure industry would be eager to
Absolutely.
look at
True.
generating those data.
My final question, and I'll probably have time for one rapid fire question after that. To all three of you, I'll ask the same question. Mr. Neeraj, standardized protocols are essential for scalability and evidence, but hospitals value clinician autonomy. So how do you navigate this challenge? Because you have to kind of walk a tightrope between the two. So how do you ensure that that challenge is navigated?
So I think if we don't enter their area, zone of reference, it is fine. I'll give you a very example of this paperless hospital, true paperless hospital. When we started the journey 1 year back, now our all 25 hospitals in tier 2, tier 1 and metros are following the paperless, IPD, OPD and each and everything. So I think if you take their buy-in, if you ask them to become a participant in the process, generally doctors are not allowed to participate in the core groups. So we have created champions. If you are not creating champions and if you don't ask them to participate, they come only once. Even most of the consultants don't participate in the quality meetings also. Right? If you don't give them a space, I always say whenever you pay a salary to a doctor, whether a minimum guarantee or a fee for service, always include his salary. One is academic part of it and one is the clinical part of it. Like what data we generate. Like if you go to most of the Western world, so suppose a doctor is getting a 1 lakh rupees, right? So 80,000 is coming from your clinical work and 20,000 is coming from your academic work. I think this kind of settings is very, very important. I feel sad whenever you go to Google and ask what is happening according to European standard, according to American standard. So I think that we need to do. So clinical autonomy, therefore I think we have taken our clinician into their participant, like we have one director of cath lab, we have director of cardiology, and we have director for academics. So if you do these kind of things, they help. And this paperless journey was a part of that. So that will make the system work. And remember, doctors are not your employees. Like I was signing a contract with one of the doctor, so we are going for IPO now. So he's telling, can I get ESOPs? So doctor don't know, they cannot get ESOPs. They are not employees. ESOPs is employee stock options. So they can get pre-stock options. So I think they are not your employees. They are partner in your this thing. So if we partner with them in various projects, what we do into the hospital, I have seen that thing for the last 24 years. They follow and they become a party to that.
Okay, thank you so much to the panel. Just one last, because time's up and that red board is blinking at me. So before they drive me out of the stage, just one question quickly, maybe in a couple of words, one or a couple of words. If there was one area, if somebody gives you 50 crore rupees or maybe 100 or whatever, and if there's one area of healthcare innovation that you had to invest in the previous segment, somebody said genomics and AI, and I was so happy. Because I'm like a flag bearer of genomics. So if suppose, like each of you had to be asked, what would be that one area where you would invest that money in? What would your answer be?
Okay.
Mr. Rajeev.
So I think I will echo what Ritu said in the previous session completely on genomics. And as early as today morning,
Fantastic.
Reliance is doing something kind of a geo disruption, getting the cancer spot kind of a test below 1,000 rupees, which is currently at 10,000. It's today morning, disruption.
Geofication of genomics.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I would put a lot of thoughts on
Fantastic.
genomics.
AI-powered point-of-care diagnostics.
Superb.
That is the revolution that's coming. We are already seeing it in so many areas. You know, you put an X-ray in, you get the diagnosis out. You assist a ultrasound with AI-enabled technology. There are smart stethoscopes which are catching things that the ears are not catching.
So point of care.
I really feel
Smart
this
point of care.
AI-powered point-of-care diagnostics will bring so many people into treatment who are otherwise being missed.
But again, for AI to be enabled for our population, we need data for our population. So I think that data should go into
Yeah.
the training sets to have these
Absolutely.
programs robustly implemented,
Absolutely.
right? Mr.
See,
Sharad.
I always feel ICU is an area where hospital are required as healthcare is moving. So if we connect all the ICU through a ICU command center, one main hospital is a hub and spoke model, and all the tier 2, tier 3, because we have a shortage of intensivists and critical care. So if we connect their ICUs with the main ICU of any hospital or any corporate hospital, and we manage all these critical care patients, which we are doing. Like I was talking about, we have 100 ICU beds, but we are managing 5,000 ICU beds. I think healthcare has to reach to tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
So you're saying accessibility.
Accessibility.
So you would invest in accessibility.
Yes.
Okay, very diverse point of view. Thank you, Mr. Neeraj. And yeah, I mean, that about wraps up the session. Two takeaways, I think. First, I think there's no good money or bad money. There's no good investment or bad investment. I think it's about thoughtful investment. I think collaboration, again, is not optional anymore. We need to have collaboration between the different stakeholders, whether it's hospitals, pharma, diagnostics, life sciences, to ensure that healthcare delivery is, absolutely robust and it's available to the last mile. Thank you very much for being such an amazing audience. And yeah, I mean, would love to hear your thoughts off the stage. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Saha, for bringing this brilliantly. If I could please invite you to kindly hand over a memento to all our panelists here. We'll get it for you, ma'am. We'd start by thanking Mr. Rajeev Arora, the President and Cluster Head, Critical Care, Oncology, Hematology and Emergency Medicine, BSV Mankind. We thank Mr. Sharad Goswami, Senior Director, Global Policy and International Public Affairs, Pfizer, for being here with us and sharing his insights and valuable thoughts. We'll extend our gratitude to Mr. Neeraj Lal, Regional Director, Maharashtra and Karnataka region at Medicover Hospitals, for being extremely powerful during this session and sharing his insights. Thank you so much. And if I may please now invite Dr. Naveen to please step up onto the stage to hand over a token of our appreciation to Dr. Saha for bringing out the topic so evidently and relevantly during this panel. Ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Saha. Thank you so much, ma'am. And if I could please invite the panelists and everyone for a group picture, please. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, if I can interest all of you to also please give in a round of applause one last time for all our panelists, Dr. Saha, and of course the entire team bringing this together for you.